Your best idea is stuck behind a screen you refuse to put down. Every time your brain hits a gap, waiting in line, sitting in traffic, lying in bed before sleep, you fill it. Podcast, feed, notification. You've trained yourself to treat silence like a problem. By the end of this, you'll understand why that silence was the asset all along, and how to use it on purpose. In 2004, a neuroscientist named Marcus Raichle published findings that changed how researchers understood the idle brain. He'd been studying what happens when people lie in an fMRI scanner, doing absolutely nothing. The expectation was that brain activity would drop. It surged. Specific regions activated in concert, lighting up with more coordination than most active tasks produced. Raichle called it the default mode network. Your brain, when freed from external input, starts running its most sophisticated program, connecting memories to possibilities, testing hypothetical futures against past experience, synthesizing ideas you'd never combine on purpose. The machinery behind your most creative thinking kicks in the moment you stop asking it to do something specific. That's the cruel irony. You need your best ideas for the project, the business, the decision that's been circling your mind for weeks, so you research harder. You consume more content, you grind through another brainstorming session, and the mechanism that would actually deliver the breakthrough sits idle, because you never sit idle. Think about where your best ideas have actually shown up. The shower, a long drive, a walk where you forgot your headphones. There's a pattern, and the pattern has nothing to do with water temperature or scenery. Those are the rare moments when your brain has no assignment and enough activation to wander freely. The ideas feel like they arrive from nowhere. They arrive from a network you almost never let run. So why does boredom work where effort fails? When you're focused on a specific task, your brain narrows. It has to. Focused attention filters out irrelevant information. That's the entire point. The problem is that creative insight almost always lives in what your focused brain considers irrelevant. The connection between a supply chain problem and something you noticed at a farmer's market last summer. The link between a childhood memory and a design pattern you've been stuck on. Those bridges only get built when the filter comes down. Boredom drops the filter. But knowing the science changes nothing if you can't sit with the discomfort. And that's the real barrier, the physical, restless, almost panicky feeling that arises about 90 seconds into doing nothing. Your hand reaches for the phone like a reflex. You felt it. That pull isn't weakness. It's conditioning. Years of micro rewards from every scroll, every notification ping, every new tab have trained your brain to expect stimulation on a 2-minute cycle. Boredom breaks that cycle, and breaking it feels awful before it feels productive. Sandy Mann, a psychologist at the University of Central Lancashire, ran an experiment that makes this concrete. She gave one group of participants a creative task immediately. The other group had to copy numbers from a phone book for 15 minutes first. Deliberately tedious, soul-draining work, then attempt the same creative task. The bored group generated measurably more ideas and more original ones. The boredom had primed their default network. Their brains, desperate for stimulation and denied it externally, started generating it internally. The creative surge came from deprivation, the way hunger makes flavor sharper. You can engineer this. Strategic boredom means building deliberate gaps into your day where you remove all inputs. No music, no podcasts, no scrolling. You sit, walk, or do something physically monotonous, washing dishes, folding laundry, staring out a window, and you let the discomfort come. The first 3 or 4 minutes are rough. Your mind thrashes, it wants a task, a feed, a voice in your ear telling you something interesting. Around minute 5, something shifts. The thrashing quiets. Thoughts start arriving that weren't there before. Connections form sideways, from angles you'd never approached deliberately. A writer named Neil Gaiman described his process in a way that maps perfectly onto this mechanism. He gave himself 2 options during writing time. Write or do nothing. Stare at the wall. Those were the only choices. No reading, no organizing, no productive procrastination. Just the work or the void. The boredom became so intolerable that his brain started generating material just to escape it. The creativity came from the brain's desperation to fill the gap, the same way Sandy Mann's phone book copiers started producing richer ideas. The constraint created the output. You might push back here. Some people say their best thinking happens while listening to music, or that a good podcast sparks ideas. And that's partially true. Certain kinds of low-demand background input can support creative wandering, but there's a threshold. Music with lyrics pulls your language centers into processing someone else's words. A podcast, even a boring one, occupies the exact network that would otherwise be generating your original thoughts. The distinction is between inputs that leave your mind room to roam and inputs that colonize it. Most of what you reach for in idle moments falls into the second category. Your phone is an attention colonizer. Every app on it was designed by people whose bonus depends on you never being bored. That last point deserves a beat. The entire attention economy runs on eliminating your idle moments. Billions of dollars in infrastructure exist specifically to ensure you never experience the state that produces your best thinking. Every algorithmic feed, every autoplay feature, every notification badge is an engineered interruption of the default mode network. You're fighting a system designed by some of the smartest engineers alive, all working to keep you from the cognitive state where insight lives. Knowing that changes the framing. Boredom becomes an act of defiance, the one free resource they can't monetize because it requires the absence of their product. The practical move is simpler than you'd expect. Start with 10 minutes. Pick a time, morning works well, before the day's demands start stacking, and sit somewhere without your phone. No journal, no meditation app, no guided breathing, just you and whatever your mind does when it has nowhere to go. The first few sessions will feel pointless. You'll be restless, distracted by the urge to check something, irritated by the apparent waste of time. That irritation is the withdrawal. It passes. By the second week, something different starts happening. Problems you've been grinding on begin resolving themselves in those quiet minutes. Ideas arrive in fragments, a phrase, an image, a sudden clarity about a decision you've been avoiding. The default network gets stronger with practice, the same way any cognitive skill does. You're training your brain to do its best work by giving it the one condition it needs: space. There's a counter-argument worth addressing honestly. Some people's idle minds don't wander toward creativity, they wander toward anxiety. Rumination. The same loops of worry playing on repeat. If that's you, boredom without structure can make things worse. The research supports this. Default mode network activity correlates with both creative thinking and depressive rumination, depending on the individual. Strategic boredom works best when you're already managing the baseline. If unstructured silence sends you spiraling, a therapist is a better first step than a boredom practice. There's no shame in that, and pretending otherwise would be dishonest. For everyone else, and that's most of you, the leverage here is enormous. You're sitting on a cognitive capability that evolution spent millions of years developing, and you've accidentally disabled it by filling every quiet moment with someone else's content. The shower insight, the walk epiphany, the 3 a.m. bolt of clarity. Those were never random. They were the only moments your default network could get a word in. You can engineer more of those moments on purpose. You can treat boredom as a tool with a specific function, activating the part of your brain that sees connections your focused mind filters out. The discomfort is the price of entry. 90 seconds of restlessness for a quality of thinking you can't access any other way. Tomorrow morning, leave your phone in another room for 10 minutes. Sit with your coffee and the silence. Feel the pull to check, to scroll, to fill the gap. Let the pull be there without answering it. Somewhere around minute 6 or 7, when the noise in your head finally thins, pay attention to what surfaces. That thought, the unexpected one, the sideways connection, the idea that feels like it wandered in from a different conversation. That's what your brain does when you finally stop giving it orders. The gap you've been filling was the workshop all along.